Honorable members, prayers. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to look with favor upon this Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Grant that it may perform its high duty as in thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic. Endow members of Parliament and ministers of state with discernment and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labors of government this land and people may be well and truly served, and thy good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. Amen. O God, grant us a vision of our country, fair as it might be, a country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, a country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, a country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service and honor shall be given to the deserving, a country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people and the love for the common good. Bless the efforts of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honorable members, votes and proceedings. Correction. Friday, 2nd February 2018, page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, page 9. The Honorable First Deputy Speaker, who presided, was very emphatic with his directive when the Honorable Apenyomakin Alexander raised the issue about the continuous misspelling of his name. I thought the record should capture the exact words of the first Deputy Speaker. He was very emphatic with the directive that he gave, not a normal correction, because to quote him, he had said this had gone on for 4 or 5 years. So the first Deputy Speaker gave a certain consequential direction. I so submit to the table's office.
To correct it accordingly. Page 11. 12. 13. Page 14. Page 15. Yes, Honorable Deputy Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, kindly permit me to bring you back to page 3. That was an oversight there. Mr. Speaker, on Friday, I was not in the chamber because I traveled with permission, but I've been captured on page 3 as item number 67 as having here. So the correction should be effected.
Thank you very much. To be corrected accordingly. Page 14, page 15, and page 16. Honorable members, the votes and proceedings of Friday, 2nd February 2018, as corrected, is hereby adopted as true record of proceedings. Official report dated Friday, 8th December. Any corrections? Honorable members, in the absence of any correction, the votes and proceedings of Friday, the official report, Friday, 8th December, is hereby adopted as true record of proceedings. Monday, 11th December. Honorable members, the official report of Monday, 11th December 2017, in the absence of any corrections, is hereby adopted as true record of proceedings. Honorable members, we have a visit to Parliament by delegation of the Saudi-Ghana Parliamentary Friendship Committee from the Shura Council, 5th to 7th February 2017. The delegation comprises His Excellency Dr. Bin Zagor, head of the delegation. His Excellency Dr. Abdullah Abalawa, member. His Excellency Dr. Rahman Youssef, member. His Excellency Dr. Saud Eli, member. Mr. Al-Mahmoudi, protocol, and Mr. Fahad Sharni, coordinator. Honorable members, on your behalf, I wish them a pleasant stay in the country and fruitful deliberations with their fellow members of Parliament. Item number 3, question. Honorable Minister for Transport, who stands in the name of the Honorable Member for Mion. Honorable Member for Mion.
Mr. Speaker, I have the permission of the Honourable Member, with your kind guidance and permission, to ask the question on his behalf. Mr. Speaker, and this is to ask the Minister for Transport if the Ministry is aware of the termination / withdrawal of appointments of some public servants in the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority, DVLA, contrary to the Labour Act 2003, Act 651. Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Transport is aware that the Driver and Vehicle License Authority carried out some recruitment exercises beginning 2 weeks before the conduct of the presidential, the general elections, respectively, that is from 24th of November 2016 to 31st of December 2016. That's after the conduct of the election and when the results had been declared. Mr. Speaker, 444 out of the 600 applicants were shortlisted for the interview. And in the end, 177 of the applicants were engaged in late December 2016 and just before 7th of January for a 6-month probation period. Mr. Speaker, out of the 177, 140 applicants accepted the appointment. Mr. Speaker, at the end of the probation period in June 2017, the authority could not confirm the appointment of about 84 of this number due to weak financial position at that time. But Mr. Speaker, it's interesting to know that the situation has, however, improved, and the authority has since reinstated 71 out of the 84 candidates. Mr. Speaker, I can give you the breakdown. In June, July 2017, 22 were recalled. In August 2017, 10 were recalled. In September 2017, 11 were recalled. In October 2017, 21 were recalled. In November 2017, 2 were recalled. And in December 2017, 1 person was recalled. And just January 2018, 4 had been recalled, making 71. Mr. Speaker, I am hopeful that if by God's grace and the system that you put in place, the financial position of the agency improved, the 13 left will be accounted for. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, are the 13 members who are yet to be reinstated being communicated to in terms to why you are unable to engage them at this particular moment?
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, after the probation period, we informed all of them that the finances of the agency was not good. And when it is that it's improved, we will engage them. That's why we have started the re-engagement. And they are very much aware that we've given them our word that when it is that we have a better financial position, they will be communicated to. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, recruitment into the public service is based on the votes, the budget of the ministry, in terms of compensation. Now, you are talking about financial position of the DVLA. Are they going to be paid from the budgetary allocation of compensation or from IGF that you raise? What would be the mode of paying them their compensation?
Honorable, are they going to be paid? Where they means those who are all others. Who are the they? Please, just for clarity.
Mr. Speaker, for clarity purposes, I'm referring to the 13 staff who had been left out of the reinstatement. And I'm asking, based on his answer, that if their compensation would be from the IGF of the DVLA or votes from government of Ghana, which is normally captured in the budget.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, DVLA paid its bucket from internal generated funds, not for government district. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, I have no further questions. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. In the minister's answer, he had indicated that there were 71.
Honorable Okujeto Ablakwa.
Most grateful, Right Honourable Speaker. I don't know if Honourable Boa wants to borrow my name, but I can spare it. Mr. Speaker, I want to find out from the Honourable Minister for Transport the first paragraph and the second paragraph. I have a difficulty understanding the Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister says in the first paragraph that at the end of the probation, that is June 2017, because of the weak financial position of DVLA, you had to lay everybody off because of a weak financial position. But in the second paragraph, you say that, Mr. Speaker, at the end of the probation period in June 2017, the authority could, however, not confirm the appointments of 84 out of this number due to its weak financial position at the time. The situation has, however, improved, and the authority has since reinstated 71 out of the 84, as indicated below. And, Mr. Speaker, at the same June that you talk about the weak financial position for which you could not engage, you have the same July 2017, you started recruiting 22. So it's not clear to me. Can you please clarify exactly what is going on?
Honourable Minister, the Honourable Member wants clarity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what I said was that they were engaged for a 6-month probation period. That is from December or from January to June 2017. 84 of them. At the end of that period, the finances of the institution were very weak. So DVLA then asked them that they were not in a better financial position to engage all the 84 people. So what they did was that in July that year, in July 2017, 22 of them were recalled. And subsequent time, they recalled them as the finances were improving. So that is what I was trying to allude to. Thank you very much.
Honourable Amabua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my name is not complete until you add a coffee. I'm a coffee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the minister's answer, he had indicated a total of 71 employees had been reinstated. My question to the minister is, how many new employees have been given employment since the reinstatement of the 71 employees? In 2017, how many employees, how many new staff were employed in 2017? 2017. If you have the number.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, to the best of my knowledge, those who were engaged between December and July were those people that we have tried to re-engage back. I don't know if any other people have been employed. Mr. Speaker, to the best of my knowledge, those who were engaged from December to middle of June, those are the people we are trying to re-engage back. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Ayariga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, appointment subject to probation is not determined by the financial condition of an organization.
No.
Probation is the conduct of the appointee. Mr. Speaker, where in the law and under what circumstances are you able to use financial consideration as grounds for refusing to engage somebody after the person has served a probation period? Which law?
Order. Honorable Ayariga. Honorable Ayariga. There is a fundamental labor principle. The last to come is the first to go. When finances are weak, the last to come is the first to go. Does not help. If the finances of the company are weak, and some people have to be redundant, even if temporarily, should we start from those who have been employed for 10 years, or we start from those who came 2 months ago? Honorable Ayariga, you may want to abandon this place. But if you insist, the Honorable Minister will answer. Because that's the labor law. Last to come, first to go.
Is Mr. Speaker answering the question?
No, we want to talk. No, I have not overruled the question yet. I'm waiting on the Honorable Ayariga. Otherwise, because we want to,
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, my understanding of the minister's response is that they decided to dispense with these people on the basis that their finances were not good. And my argument is, and the question really is, where in this world have you ever seen that people on probation are not employed on the basis of the financial condition of the organization? If somebody is on probation, you decide that the person hasn't lived up to the person's task, you can dispense with the person's employment based on performance. But you can't refuse to employ the person on the basis of your finances. So if the answer is that based on finances, they had to dismiss them, completely different legal consequences arise. But if the position is that they were dispensed with because during probation period, they did not live up to their responsibilities, completely different legal consequences will arise. That is why we want an answer. Was it based on their failure to meet the terms during probation, or it was purely because the finances of the organization did not enable them to employ them? That's a simple question.
Honorable Majority Leader.
The Speaker, the Honorable Member, in asking the question, is being very argumentative. The Speaker is starting his own questions and is coming with his own marking scheme, answering the questions, and thereafter leaving the residue to the Minister to answer. The Speaker, our orders provide, Order 67(1)(b), a question shall not contain any argument. On account of that, Mr. Speaker, I invite him to rule that question out of order.
Honorable Minister, your position. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I may not be a lawyer, as the Honourable Member just said. But my understanding is that unemployment is a contractual agreement between the employee and the employer. So if I've given 6 months probation, telling you that come and wait for me for 6 months, and after that, based on the condition that you fulfill, and I will also be able to fulfill, I will engage you. I think it's fair that at the end of the 6 months, if I think that my financial position is not good enough for me to continue the engagement, I have to let you know. And based on that, The DVLA told them that at that point, the finances of the institution was not good enough to continue the engagement. And when they think that it will improve, they will engage them. And the Speaker, from the analysis that I had given, it showed clearly that DVLA lived up to the expectation. And when the finances of the institution was getting better, they started employing them. And you could see that out of the 84, 74 of them has been re-engaged. So I can tell 71 out of the 84 has been re-engaged. So I can assure my honorable member that you shouldn't be too much worried about it. When they think that the finance of the institution improve, the 13 of them will be well employed. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Purple. Honorable, the last question from there.
Mr. Speaker, my question to the minister is, the persons who you had employed and put on probation, were they paid probational salaries or were they paid regular salaries? And if they were paid probational salaries, don't you think that sacking them on the conviction that you had no money to continue to pay them was exploitatory? The question is, those who were employed on probational basis, were they paid probational salaries? And if they were paid probational salaries, don't you agree with us, with me, when I say that sacking them after the period of probation is tantamount to exploiting them during the time of probation?
Honorable, yes, Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, the honorable member, in positing his question, is inviting the minister whether he agrees with him. Clearly, he wants a personal opinion from the minister. Mr. Speaker, our orders frown on this. Order 67(1)(e). A question shall not solicit the expression of an opinion. Mr. Speaker, he knows this. He's an experienced member of parliament. And he's baiting the minister to express a personal opinion. Mr. Speaker, that cannot be entertained under our rules.
Objection upheld. Leadership. Leadership.
Mr. Speaker, thanks for your indulgence. Mr. Speaker, may I refer the minister to his own answer in page 7 of the order paper. And minister, with the speaker's leave, I quote, 444 out of 600 applicants were shortlisted for the interview. And in the end, 177 of the applicants were engaged. Don't you believe and accept that this was on the basis of the financial strength and muscle of the DVLA to accommodate the 177? That is why they proceeded with this activity out of the 444.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very much aware that the terms of engagement were stated in their letters of appointment within that 6-month period. Thank you very much.
Honorable Minority Leader, can it not be said that this book will even have brought bad luck to the organization? What about if those persons brought bad luck to the organization? But we have been told that the fortunes of the company plummeted. And we don't know who caused that. Honorable, you may continue with further questions. After that, the First Deputy Speaker. Please go on.
Mr. Speaker, I have just two more. Mr. Speaker, the minister in his answer, in the last line, I'm hopeful that the remaining 13 staff will be reinstated as the authority's finances improve. Mr. Speaker, is he not aware that the DVLA is in good financial standing, and therefore this cannot be an excuse per the IGF approval that they have, and therefore the board, not even in November, in October, initiated this exercise?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't know, but I am not aware about the basis with which the minority leader is coming from. Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Speaker, the minister in his answer makes reference to presidential and general elections respectively. Mr. Speaker, merit other than politics should determine recruitment into the public service. Do you agree?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I agree with the minority leader perfectly about his assertion. My own view was just try to state the period with which the transaction took place, and I think that they did engage them based on merit, but not on political expediency. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable First Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question to the minister is that is it not the case that in 2016, when the staff were engaged, they were on government payroll, and from 2017, DVLA was made to pay from its own resources? Is that not the case?
Order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is precisely so.
Order. So, Honorable Minority Leader, you could see that I was nearly prophetic in saying that the fortunes may have changed. And properly so. Very well. Any further question from leadership? Otherwise, Honorable Minister, you are discharged. Thank you very much. Item 6. I will vary the order of business slightly and take this item because it's important. Motion. Chairman of the committee. Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, you are the chair of this august house, and who am I to question your directive. But, Mr. Speaker, if you look at Order 53, the business, one of it is as important as we are already even infringing on a ruling of the Supreme Court, which has to do with laying of papers in the matter of legal profession, professional and post-court law courts, Regulations 2017. I can understand how important it is, but normally, Mr. Speaker, I was thinking the majority leader will make an application for the order of business to be varied. But under these circumstances, this matter is compelling legally, and I do not think that will take too much time, including that of the National Identity Register Regulations 2018, for which we were persuaded even to accept it to be laid on a Saturday, a non-working day. So, Mr. Speaker, if it will not displease you, I will request per Order 53 that we proceed with the business before you move to motion 6. It's an application I'm making further to your directive. I shall submit, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I agree with the Minority Leader that we could proceed on the lines of the business as set out on the order paper for today, especially given the fact that we're not going to spend much time on 5. But the issue about the variation of the business, Mr. Speaker, I have raised this matter, especially when I was on the other side. And there is an empirical ruling from the chair that the chair is ultimately responsible for ensuring order in the House. So the chair could vary the business of the House. Mr. Speaker, I was a minority leader at the time. I raised the matter on occasions, many occasions, Mr. Speaker, and I was not heard. The ruling from the chair was that to the extent that the chair is ultimately responsible for the maintenance of order, the chair could show moto do that. Today, we are being told that we should go back to the straight application of 53. I held that position, and I should be principled in supporting that position. But, Mr. Speaker, this vacillation may not help to grow the House. Change has come. Change has come. I'm talking about consistency. You should be consistent. But, Mr. Speaker, I believe we can go by the schedule of business.
The variation of the order of business as per our rules rests with the Speaker. That is my discretion, and I'm exercising it accordingly, the way I've indicated. This is a matter regarding which Parliament was recalled from its well-deserved rest. And when the matter comes before the House, it is a fit and proper matter that should deserve variation for it to be taken accordingly. In fact, I will consider that this is the expectation of our countrymen and women at this stage. I say that issue should be taken at this stage. Item listed 6, motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that, notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 81, which require that no motion shall be debated until at least 48 hours have elapsed between the date on which notice of the motion is given and the date on which the motion is moved. The motion for the adoption of the report of the special committee tasked to investigate the levy and collection by the Ministry of Trade and Industry of the Ghana cedi equivalent of various sums of money in United States of America dollars from expatriate businesses and related matters during the recently held Ghana Expatriate Business Awards in Accra may be moved today. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Honorable, do you rise to second the motion? Who rises? Who rises to support the motion?
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
This is the procedural motion. Moved, seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Honorable Chairman of the committee, you may move the motion. Order. Honorable Minority Leader, do I see you on your feet?
Yes.
You may.
Mr. Speaker, I was on my feet. And Mr. Speaker, may I refer you to Order 80 of the standing orders.
Order 80.
80, yes. Except as provided in paragraph 2 of this order, no motion shall be debated until at least 48 hours have lapsed. This period not excluding days on which the House does not sit. After notice as prescribed in Order 78, notice of motion has been given. Mr. Speaker, this particular paper of the committee's report was late, and therefore 48 hours have not lapsed. And I am at a loss why we are in a hurry on a matter of great public interest, and therefore I have a difficulty. I have a difficulty that we are suspending the standing orders on this matter, especially so that, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I got my copy of the report only this morning. And all members got their copies only this morning. It's only fair and proper that members receive copies only this morning. So why the rush? Why the rush? Why are you in a hurry? I hope Mr. Speaker, 146-page report. Order. In the interest of transparency and accountability, this matter cannot be railroaded. Order. This matter cannot be railroaded through Parliament. And I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, that if the chairman wants to proceed, he knows our position. Mr. Speaker, 146 pages. As I'm talking, Mr. Speaker, I'm reconciling it, and many members will need to do a reconciliation. If you read even, I'm raising my objections. Mr. Speaker, when the Controller and Accountant General appeared before the committee, conspicuously lost in this report is what the Controller and Accountant General spoke about, contravening laws and not following due process. It's not in this report.
Honorable members, order.
And members of the committee from the minority side give me indication that they were supposed to meet with the chairman at 4 to reconcile. That was not done. That was not done. So under the circumstance,
Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I'm saying the report is voluminous.
Honorable Minority Leader, please take your seat for the time being. I will not allow any unnecessary interruptions. Appropriate interventions will be allowed according to the rules. The Honorable Minority Leader is raising an objection on his feet. I'll be glad if all will listen and then the appropriate Honorable Member respond accordingly. This is a very important national matter and we want to deal with it appropriately. Honorable Minority Leader, you may continue.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the protection. Mr. Speaker, I'm saying that only this morning that I, together with many members, all members, received copies of the Special Committee to investigate the levy and collection of sums of money from expatriate businesses and related matters, to which Parliament asked a committee to investigate. And I'm saying of the 146 pages, I, together with many other members, are yet to satisfy and read through it thoroughly in order to make meaningful contributions to the debate. And Mr. Speaker, thankfully, the committee sitting was public, so the Ghanaian public were carried through. Therefore, no attempt or effort to cover up in this matter will succeed anyway, because the public went through. And I say, Mr. Speaker, I'm holding with me here the verbatim report of the committee, a submission of the Comptroller and Accountant General of Ghana. I'm interested in improving systems and processes. A very lucid and succinct point the Comptroller made. Mr. Speaker, will you advise? I'm yet to find it in the report. I'm yet, very important from Comptroller, it's not in the report. I need to read like any other member to satisfy myself. The Comptroller. So, Mr. Speaker, this report is one-sided by the chairman, members of the minority. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, will be guided. You can proceed with the motion, but the minority is unable to participate. The court is one-sided and does not serve the public interest of transparency and accountability. It's lopsided, it's one-sided. We will not take part in it. Therefore, we are sorry, we will not. The chairman didn't do a thorough work.
Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the motion has been moved
it was a procedural motion that was calling on this House to stand aside the relevant provision of 81 to enable the House to consider the motion on the approval and adoption of the report of the special committee. I noticed that the minority leader got up after the motion had been moved, even before it was seconded. The Speaker, our orders provide in Order 81. Order 81. Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, I may want to read Order 81. Unless otherwise provided in these orders, every motion, unless made at the second reading or consideration stage of a bill, must be seconded, and if not seconded, shall not be debated or entered in the votes and proceedings. Mr. Speaker, so if a motion, whether procedural or otherwise, has been moved, it must be seconded. If it is not seconded, the minority leader cannot rise up to challenge anything. Mr. Speaker, I keep saying that the young indeed must grow. Otherwise, this is simply procedural. A motion is moved. If you're not coming up with a counter motion, the Speaker, you cannot get up to arrest a motion that has been moved and not been seconded. Any attempt to do that would be an exercise in futility, because in that regard, there will not be anything before the House. The Speaker, so the motion is moved and seconded. And I heard the minority leader say, because already he started debating, Mr. Speaker, I think we must put this out there. This House cannot be held ransom by a single individual who decides to be very dishonest. Mr. Speaker, this House will not pander to pedestrianism. We will not allow it. Mr. Speaker, the committee we charged to consider the matter and report to this House on January 24th. That is a day after the reconvening of Parliament. On the 24th, when we met here, the committee appealed to us that they were not ready, that they needed additional days to deal with the job. Mr. Speaker, leadership conferred and granted them additional days to finish and then submit the report. Initially, we said we're giving them a day more. They decided, they appealed for 2 days. So we thought it was going to happen on Friday. The Friday in the very week that Parliament reconvened. They then came and appealed to us they needed extra days. We granted them up to Tuesday. The Speaker, on Tuesday, the same committee came to us, led by the chairman, to appeal for an additional day. That was last week, Tuesday. We granted them up to Wednesday to submit the report. The Speaker, as our orders provide, the committee met and came up with a draft report. A draft report would usually be engendered by the chairman of the committee. People don't even know that. And this morning when we met in your conclave, Mr. Speaker, we heard arguments that up to now, members of Parliament in leadership don't even know that the burden is on the committee chairman to either write the report of the committee himself or cause it to be written. Mr. Speaker, that is the express provision of Order 210. And may I quote that? Any member of a committee may bring up a report for its consideration, and all such reports shall be fully entered in the minutes of proceedings of the committee. When all the reports have been brought up, the chairman shall propose the reports in order until one of them is accepted as a basis for discussion. beginning with his own report and proceedings, that is the report of the chairman. Mr. Speaker, that is the express provision of our orders. People are not learning. And so they come accusing the chairman that the chairman generated his own report. People have been in this house for 8 years, for 12 years. They cannot understand this basic provision in the standing orders. Mr. Speaker, so the chairman brings up a report covering the proceedings, and he invites the committee members, if anybody has anything to be added or to be deleted, let them meet and consider saying. The Honorable Aveji had actually traveled outside the country, a member of the committee from the other side. The Honorable Dr. Dominic Ayine was with them. They had considered everything together. When it came to considering the draft report generated by the chairman, the Speaker, he took the draft report, and for 2 days he went missing. The committee went looking for him to come and share his thoughts. He disappeared. They called him, sent him text messages. He refused to respond. When he did, after 12 midnight on Wednesday, it was only to tell them that his laptop had crashed. Cock and bull stories. Thereafter, they asked why he was not even responding to their telephone calls. He said he had run out of battery, and that there was light off in his house.
No prepaid.
Mr. Speaker, cock and bull stories. Clearly, they wanted to hold this house to ransom. They want to hold this house to ransom. Mr. Speaker, that's why I said this house will not allow itself to be held ransom by a single individual who decides to be very dishonest. Who decides to be very, very dishonest. Mr. Speaker, we will not ponder to this. Mr. Speaker, and we are being told that he's going to write a minority report. Where in our orders do we have a place for a minority report? People are still hallucinating. People are hallucinating. And people are yet to come out of where they found themselves after the elections. Mr. Speaker, there's no place for such. 210 provides, and I read on, the question to be proposed by the chairman on any report shall be that the report brought up by an honorable member be read a second time, paragraph by paragraph. When this question has been agreed to, it shall not be proposed on any further reports, but any portions thereof may be offered as amendments to the report under the consideration if they are relevant to it. If the Honorable Dr. Ayine had anything relevant, the door was open to him. The chairman had summoned the meeting, and for 2 days he decided not to make himself available. It is the reason why, Mr. Speaker, on Thursday the committee came ready to lay the report. And then the minority leader and the chief whip came pleading that they would discover the Honorable Dr. Ayine that day for him to be part of the consideration. Mr. Speaker, this is the person who thinks that Parliament should hold on and not proceed on what Parliament has agreed to do until he elects to be part of it. So, Mr. Speaker, it is strange where the minority leader is coming from. When he tells us, he begins by telling us that he hasn't read the report. And yet he concluded by saying that what contribution the Comptroller and Accountant General had made in the Bepeting report is not in the report.
How did he know?
How did he know if you have not finished reading the report? Yes, Speaker, you see, you can tell people when they are telling the truth or when they are not telling the truth. The Speaker, the time is right. We'll deal with this, with or without them. This Parliament will move on. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
I will allow the Honorable Chairman of the committee to continue. Meanwhile, in the development of democracy and good governance in this country, I'm compelled to make a few remarks. Allow me to make a few remarks and the chairman will continue. We have to work together to develop democracy in this country. It is tragic to note that the mere variation of the order of business so that this very important national matter should be discussed, debated by this Honorable House, became an issue of challenge. Are we not interested in knowing the outcome of this matter? I trust Ghanaians want to. Honorable members, the House was recalled from its well-deserved holiday because of this matter. On the day that we were discussing this matter in this House, it was well pointed out to the Honorable Muntaka, in whose name the motion stood, the application was, that there were serious irregularities, which of course were well founded. His very name, despite the fact that the introductory paragraph had said "we," which of course then included him, his name was not there. In a court of competence jurisdiction, you either be given the opportunity by a gracious judge to go and amend your incompetencies, or the judge will strike it out. Honorable members, you remember, I said, in the interest of the peace and stability of our nation, with a background to what men like Huntington had written, that there must be a calm atmosphere for the development of democracy and development generally. And that a Praetorian society is one in which there is always dede, ye, confusion. Therefore, we must be very careful how we acted. I gave them 2 hours to correct this and come back to this Honorable House. And some of these things must be spoken about and handardized for the sake of posterity. After 2 hours, those who had been done a favor to just correct the procedurals, dot the I's and see to the T's, decided not to oblige. Nevertheless, I said, we must go on, listen, and set up the committee, despite their disregard for the opportunity to make the relevant amendment. It must take a gracious judge in any court of competent jurisdiction that I have had the privilege to appear before. Despite the graciousness, it was not done. We nevertheless proceeded to ask for nominations in order to set up the committee, and it was given a very short time in the light of what was happening in the country and the comments that were going on, so that we all know the truth. Now, today has come, and those who should help will be present so that we know what has happened, don't want to. Nevertheless, we have a responsibility in the name of democracy to proceed. Honorable Chairman, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this Honorable House adopts the report of the Special Committee tasked to investigate the levy and collection by the Ministry of Trade and Industry of the Ghana cedi equivalent of various sums of money in United States of America dollars from expatriate businesses and related matters during the recently held Ghana Expatriate Business Awards in Accra. Mr. Speaker, in so doing, I present to you your committee's report. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, sorry. This special committee was set up by your good self, pursuant to a motion that was moved in this House on the 5th of January by Honorable Muntaka, which was seconded by Honorable Okujeto Abrakwa. And the terms of that motion called upon this House to do the following: that this Honorable House investigates the levy and collection by the Ministry of Trade and Industry of the Ghana cedi equivalent of various sums of money in United States of America dollars from expatriate businesses and related matters during the recently held Ghana Expatriate Business Awards in Accra. Mr. Speaker, after leadership had made contributions to the motion, the committee was set up, which comprised my good self as the chairman, Kwesi Amiatseme, Dr. Mark Asibe Yabua, Mr. Yaobuabe Asamoah, Mr. James Kruche Aveji, and Dr. Dominic Akuritinga Ayine. Mr. Speaker, the committee had the benefit of other members sitting through some of our hearings, and we want to use this opportunity to thank them profusely for showing us that solidarity. And these members include the majority leader and leader of the House, Honorable Seche Mensah Bonsu, Honorable Moses Anim, who was with us throughout our hearings, Honorable Ato Pamford, Honorable Fuseni Issa, Honorable Collins Owusu Amankwa, Honorable Alasan Saibu Suini, Honorable Cassiel Atoforsin, Honorable Martin Oti Jaku, Honorable Ras Mubarak, Honorable Anthony Efa, Honorable Evans Opoku Bobie, and Honorable Kwaku Asante Boate. We acknowledge, the committee acknowledges all the honorable members who made time to attend the sittings. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with Order 198.1 of the Standing Orders of the House, the Clerk to Parliament appointed the following officers to serve the committee: Mrs. Rosemary Atta Sarkodie, Clerk to the Special Committee; Mr. Louis Boache, Assistant Clerk to the Special Committee. In addition, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Ernest Dafoe, an Assistant Clerk of Parliament, and other officers from the Hansard Department were co-opted to assist the Secretariat in its duties. The Secretariat provided essential administrative, logistical, and research support to the committee and worked effectively in arranging and managing hearing sessions. They also prepared materials and drafted documents and reports for the consideration of the committee. The committee is grateful to the clerk and her team for their invaluable service they rendered to the committee. Mr. Speaker, our terms of reference were, 1, to investigate the alleged levy and collection of sums of money by the Ministry of Trade and Industry from expatriate businesses during the recently held Ghana Expatriate Business Awards in Accra. 2, to inquire whether any payments were made to and received, and if so, how disbursement was effected, and whether any such disbursement offended any law. And 3, to investigate any relevant related matters. And the committee was also to recommend appropriate measures aimed at redressing violations, if any, that may have occurred, and the prevention of any such violations, and report to Parliament on the 24th day of January 2018. Mr. Speaker, as we are aware, we couldn't meet that deadline and therefore sought extension from your good self, which was graciously extended for us. Mr. Speaker, we approach our duty this way. The committee held its first meeting on Monday, 8th January 2018, to determine the modalities and procedures for regulating its deliberations and in executing its mandate. The committee was particularly mindful of Order 197, which states, among other things, that the deliberation of the committee shall be confined to the matter referred to it by the House, and any extensions or limitations to it made by the House, However, for transparency, openness, and integrity of the deliberations and the processes, the committee decided to hold its sittings in public, but reserved the right to take evidence in camera should the circumstances and public interest so dictate. For the purposes of its public hearings, sittings, Mr. Speaker, the committee identified the following key witnesses. The mover of the motion, Honorable Alhaji Mohammed Mubarak Muntaka. The seconder of the motion, Honorable Samuel Okujeto Abrapa. The Ministry of Trade and Industry, the Millennium Excellence Foundation, representatives of the expatriate businesses, and the Comptroller and Accountant General. Mr. Speaker, the committee sittings were generally held in public and were covered live on TV and radio stations. However, at the request of the expatriate businesses, the evidence of the representatives of the expatriate business was taken in camera. The committee received documents from the various witnesses who appeared before it. The committee also took oral evidence from the witnesses by examining them on oath, affirmation, or otherwise. Thus, in investigating the matter, the committee examined the following: audio recordings and transcripts of interviews granted by witnesses, material evidence in relevant media publications, and written and oral submissions or evidence adduced by the witnesses. Mr. Speaker, a total of 14 witnesses appeared before your committee and provided evidence, out of which 5 were examined in public and 9 in camera. All these witnesses were examined on oath and had the opportunity to be legally represented. They were given the opportunity to correct their transcripts. The public evidence sessions of the committee were held on the 11th, the 12th, 15th, and 25th January 2018, to which the media and the general public were invited. The witnesses that appeared during these hearings included the underlisted, Honorable Muntakao, Honorable Okujetu Abrakwa, Honorable Alan John Kwajuchemantin, the Minister for Trade and Industry, Ambassador James Victor Behom, the Chairman, Millennium Excellence Foundation, Ambassador Ashim Morton, the President of the Millennium Excellence Foundation, and Mr. Eugene Asante Ofosuhene, the Controller and Accountant General. Mr. Speaker, the committee also sat in camera, and on the 23rd of January, and took evidence from representatives of the underlisted expatriate businesses. The MD for M&G Pharmaceuticals was represented by Gopal Basu. The CEO, Cosmos, Mr. Joe Mensah, Mr. Salem Karmoni, MD, Japan Motors, Mr. Stefano Ramela, the MD of Consa Limited, Mukesh Takwani, MD, B5 Plus, Mr. Amal Deep Singh Hari, CEO of IPMC, Mr. Saeed Fakri of Interpras, and the last but not the least, Ms. Rosie Motman of Airtel Tigo. The committee further received written submissions, Mr. Speaker, from the following expatriate businesses who were unable to appear before the committee due to pre-scheduled assignments or the absence of the respective CEOs from the jurisdiction. Unilever Ghana Limited, Zenith Bank, Aviance Ghana Limited, Melcom Group of Companies, Barry Calibot, D. Simoni Limited, Mohinani Group, Queros Carval, Sunon Asogri Power, MNK Ghana Limited, Amandi Limited, and Geodrill Limited. Mr. Speaker, what follows in our report is a summary of evidence, and it's from pages 11 to page 99. It sums up all the pieces of evidence that the witnesses adduced before the committee. Speaker, I will urge the Hansard Department to capture the entirety of the report, because it will not be possible to read them all. So I move to the observations and findings of the committee, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the issues arising from the evidence of the witnesses for determination by the special committee are: 1, whether or not the Ministry of Trade and Industry imposed levy or levies and collected same; whether or not there were payments made to and received by the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and how disbursements were made. 3, did the disbursements offend any law? 4, we considered related matters, and the related matters, we looked at whether or not there was extortion of monies from expatriate businesses. 2, whether or not the President of the Republic of Ghana or the presidency was involved in the Ghana Expatriate Business Awards and other matters. And 3, we also looked at the recall of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, we then proceeded to deal with the issues one after the other in the order set out as above. The first issue, whether or not the Ministry of Trade and Industry imposed levies and collected same. Mr. Speaker, it would be recalled that the main substance of the motion which culminated in the setting up of the special committee was that this Honorable House investigates the levy and collection by the Ministry of Trade and Industry of the Ghana cedi equivalent of various sums of money. When Honorable Muntaka, after here, if you hear CW1, it refers to him. When CW1 appeared before the committee, he was asked this question. Committee Witness 1. By Mr. Asamoah. The motion he drafted and brought before Right Honorable Speaker and submitted on the floor says the levy and collection. I will then take it that there was a levy. Alhaji Muntaka. Mr. Chairman, when I drafted this motion, I had in mind the possibility of the ministry saying that they have rights under a law to collect this. So I wanted to encapsulate almost every possible thought. When I looked at the definition, the use of levy was generic. I will just give the meaning I saw in the Collins Dictionary. It said, a levy is a sum of money that you have to pay. So, it was for me to couch the motion such that when I came to the floor, I could possibly not miss anything. Mr. Speaker, to our mind and understanding, the member did not know exactly what he was asking for when he used a levy in the motion. And that is the more reason why he subsequently abandoned levy in his answers to questions from the committee. Dr. Sibe Yeboah asked this question. Mr. Chairman, first, he gave us a definition of levy, that it is a sum of money that has to be paid. My Wikipedia definition of levy is that it is a tax, a fee, or a fine. In the context of our Ghanaian legislation, we should have, for instance, the National Health Insurance levy. So, in the context of our legislation, what is his understanding of levy as used in his motion? Alhaji Muntaka responds this way. Mr. Chairman, like I said earlier, my use of levy in my motion was to make it broad enough to convey every possible area so that in moving the motion, I will not have been shut down. Dr. Sibe Yeboah then follows up. So per your understanding, the activities of the event organizers and the facilitation role of the ministry in raising money falls within the scope of a levy. Alhaji Muntaka, that is not the only terminology I used there. I also used collection. So to be fair to me, I can say that all that I knew were collections. This is the witness who moved the motion and said levies have been imposed. Now he says we should be fair to him. He used collections. And so all that he knows is collections, not levy. I said that to make my motion broad enough, I decided to add levy. Later on, Mr. Speaker, Alhaji Muntaka said this in response to a question from the committee. For the avoidance of doubt, what happened was a collection. I take it again. For the avoidance of doubt, this is Alhaji Muntaka speaking. For the avoidance of doubt, what happened was a collection. I had collections in my motion. I will repeat that I have not said anywhere that the ministry has imposed levies. They do not have the power to do that. It is only Parliament that has the power to impose levies. The position of Honorable Muntaka, when he says that the ministry has no power to impose levies, is no different from the view of the Honorable Minister for Trade and Industry. The Honorable Minister had said in an answer to a question that the ministry does not have the power to impose a levy, and so they did not impose any levy. In a follow-up question, the Honorable Minister had this to say: Chairman, do you stand by your assertion that your ministry did not impose any levy? Mr. Chairman, a levy is generally defined as an amount such as a tax, fee, or fine imposed, charged, exacted, and collected by compulsion or legal authority. As I have described early on, the sponsorship was voluntary contribution by individuals towards the organization of the event. So the ministry could not have imposed a levy because these were voluntary contributions. And this is not the first time that you have events of this nature being organized, soliciting for sponsorship. So this could not in any way be described as a levy. Mr. Chairman, indeed, how is it that in the public domain, the allegations were originally described as extortion? In the motion that was moved, and on the basis of which this special committee was established, the description that is being provided is that it was a levy. So where do we stand on this matter? Was it extortion or a levy? The minister asked these questions. In all humility, the exercise that was conducted was neither extortion nor the imposition of a levy. The minister ended his answer. This view was reiterated by the Comptroller and Accountant General when he appeared before the committee. Mr. Chairman, in this said MOU, he had made reference to the MOU, so we were following up on him. The responsibility of the Millennium Excellence Foundation was to raise funds and deposit those funds in a designated public account of the ministry. Mr. Fosuhene, that is right. Does that make it a levy? Not at all. It is not a levy. Even though Honorable Muntaka, the mover of the motion, abandoned the claim of imposition of levy, Honorable Okujeto Abrakwa, CW2, said, among other things, that we are not running away from anything we have said since the matter broke. And yet, throughout his testimony before the committee, he did not adduce any evidence to support the allegation of levy having been imposed by the Ministry of Trade and Industry. In our evaluation of the totality of the evidence adduced before the committee, we are unable to find that the Ministry of Trade and Industry imposed levies as captured in the motion. It seems to us that there is no evidence to support the claim of an imposition of levy by the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and we so find. Tied to levy was collection. It is our view that if the allegation of levy were to be sustained, then we could safely conclude that the said levy was collected by the ministry. We are unable to find that there was collection of a levy, and in our considered view, Mr. Speaker, collection as captured in the motion is a consequence or a byproduct of the levy in the same motion. They cannot be independently treated. In the event, it is safe to conclude, for the avoidance of doubt, that if there was no levy imposed, there was no levy so collected. Mr. Speaker, since members have had the benefit of reading the report, I want to move on to page 141. Summary of findings. Then, Mr. Speaker, the committee did not, Mr. Speaker, the question was whether or not payments were made to and received by the Ministry of Trade and Industry and how disbursements were made. And these are the findings of the committee, Mr. Speaker. There did not seem to be any controversy as to whether payments were made and received by the Ministry of Trade and Industry. The Honorable Minister for the Ministry of Trade and Industry told the committee that as part of the arrangement towards the hosting of the first ever Ghana Expatriate Business Awards, the ministry entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Millennium Excellence Foundation, the initiators of the Nobel Awards scheme. Within the framework of the MOU, it was the exclusive responsibility of the foundation to raise funds of sponsorship for the Ghana Expatriate Business Awards event. In addition to the fundraising responsibility, and pursuant to the principle of transparency and accountability, the MOU also enjoined the Millennium Excellence Foundation to deposit all funds raised in a dedicated Ministry of Trade and Industry account. From these two references from the MOU, it is not difficult to appreciate that the foundation was to mobilize funds for the awards and that the monies so raised should be paid into a designated account of the Ministry of Trade and Industry. That the evidence of the mover and the seconder of the motion was full of speculations and that the committee refused to pander to those speculative assumptions. And, Mr. Speaker, a multitude of speculations cannot constitute a liability. Mr. Speaker, on the question of whether the disbursements offended any law, these are the findings of the committee. It was clear from evidence that the Ministry of Trade and Industry, it was clear from the evidence that the Ministry of Trade and Industry acted within the confines of Regulation 28 or the Financial Administration Regulations by issuing the GCR, which is the General Counterfoil Receipts, in receipt of the payments. There was nothing untoward. Furthermore, Regulation 56(2) of the Financial Administration Regulations provides, and it appears to recognize agreements for financial arrangements like the MOU between the ministry and the foundation. However, the Comptroller and Accountant General considered that the exact mechanism for managing a blend of funds arising out of partnership between government and a private entity remains a gray area. In addition, the committee acknowledged that in operating the accounts in respect of the funds lodged, the ministry sought to act in the best interest of ensuring financial prudence and accountability, whilst meeting the need of the specific purpose of facilitating timely access to the funds for the organization of the event. In the considered view of the committee, the disbursement did not offend any law. And Mr. Speaker, I must add that the ministry acted in a very open and transparent manner. They provided the GCR book to us. They gave us the bank statement, the account into which the payments were lodged. The GCR, the whole book was given to us. The bank statement was here. Even the original was given to Dr. Ayuni to aid him in his work, which he has not even retained. Mr. Speaker, on related matters, whether or not monies were extorted from expatriate business owners, the sum total of evidence on extortion is quite revealing. None of the sponsors of the event alluded to compulsion, coercion, threat, pressure, duress, order, command to make a payment towards the event. The reasonable conclusion that any reasonable man can make out of the totality of the evidence adduced before the committee and communications received from a cross-section of the expatriate businesses is that the allegation of extortion is baseless, unsupported, unfounded, and unsubstantiated. Mr. Speaker, it is trite knowledge that he who asserts must prove by leading evidence to support his or her claim. The proponents of the motion were not able to adduce any credible evidence, not even any evidence at all. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, your committee finds that no credible evidence was led to establish extortion, notwithstanding the very strong and vitriolic language purporting extortion on the part of the government by the accusers. Whether or not the presidency was involved in the Ghana Expatriate Business Awards and related matters. Mr. Speaker, the committee agrees to the attributes accorded Ambassador Victor Beho by Mr. Okudzeto Abraka, that Ambassador Victor Beho is venerable and highly respected. We agree with him. Accordingly, the committee has no reason to doubt the evidence of Ambassador Victor Beho. Respecting or relating to the information to the presidency, we are unable to subscribe to the view that the phrase, upon the conception of the novel idea, the Millennium Excellence Foundation informed the government through the presidency, meant that the president or the presidency was involved or connected with the organization of the event. Consequently, Mr. Speaker, we find that there is no inconsistency between paragraph 3 and paragraph 1 of the 16th December 2017 and 21st December 2017 statements from the ministry, respectively. Within the context of the MOU, it was the responsibility of the Minister of Trade and Industry to ensure that the President of the Republic of Ghana, together with other senior ministers of state, were present during the hosting of the event. In the spirit of this provision, it can be said that the minister was carrying out one of his responsibilities under the MOU, assuming without admitting that the allegations were properly anchored. Would the argument be stretched to mean that whenever there is a social event, be it at the national or local level, for instance, festivals and funerals of prominent people in our country, where His Excellency the President's name is used, then we could conclude that any fundraising activity that goes on at that function is attributable to the President. So the mere fact that the President's name was used in advertorials relating to the Ghana Expatriates Business Awards is construed to mean that the President was physically involved. It's very, very upset to make such a conclusion. As the first gentleman of the land, Mr. Speaker, the President's name often appears as the headline general personality in many official and quasi-official events. Could that be construed as the President organizing the events or the financial arrangements associated with them? We also found that none of the other expatriate business leaders who attended upon the committee said anything to the effect that they made contributions or attended the event with the view to having access to the President. From the foregoing, it is very untrue that people made payments or sponsored the event to have access to the President or to have a seat at the presidential high table. There is incontrovertible evidence to the effect that a number of the expatriate business owners sat at the presidential high table who did not contribute $100,000 or $75,000, or in some cases, anything at all. The committee found that the 23rd October letter did not have the benefit or sponsorship package attached to it as claimed. Mr. Speaker, the proponents had alleged that the ministry had attached a benefits package to the 23rd October letter, and therefore it implied that the ministry was the one that was doing the fundraising. The expatriate business leaders who appeared before us indicated to us that this sponsorship package was delivered to them at a dinner on the 10th of November 2017. The letter and the reference was written on the 23rd October. So how could a letter written on 23rd October anticipate a sponsorship package or a dinner on the 10th of November? Another absurdity. Another absurdity. Mr. Speaker, on the recall of Parliament, the committee is of the opinion that given the cost and inconvenience as well as the high drama of a parliamentary recall, members ought to be guided by the views of Mr. Speaker in order that the mandatory power of summoning Parliament, as captured in Article 1123 of the Constitution, is invoked not only circumspectly but also sparingly. It's our view that this will preserve, respect, and enhance the utility of the tool of recall for serious matters of national importance. Mr. Speaker, we make the following recommendations. The committee, after its deliberations, makes the following recommendations. 1, that the Comptroller and Accountant General and the Minister of Finance should consider in the formulation of the new regulations for the PFM Act adequate provisions to cater for public-private partnership arrangements and emerging or contemporary issues. 2, that there is a need to have a second look at the recall mechanism and ensure that it is not needlessly invoked at any time because of its mandatory nature in the Constitution. Upon a recall, we recommend, Mr. Speaker may have to establish that there is a prima facie case. And if Mr. Speaker is not satisfied that there is a good reason for the summoning, he may dispense with the meeting. This is This test is likely to curtail frivolous and vexatious requests for a recall. Mr. Speaker, we also recommend that the practice of some members of Parliament trooping to the media to make allegations against highly praised officials of state must cease. The committee is of the view that members of Parliament who indulge in such acts ought not to be heard in Parliament if they should thereafter bring those matters before Parliament to deliberate on same. We are saying this because before they brought the motion here, it was all over: extortion, corruption, bribery. Then they come to Parliament, they say something different. We go into the matter, we see nothing. It's a waste of the public resource. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, the committee, after the hearings and the analysis and evaluation of the evidence adduced before it, has come to a conclusion that there is no merit in the allegations leveled against the Ministry of Trade and Industry as contained in the motion and which culminated in the setting up of the special committee. Accordingly, Mr. Speaker, your committee recommends to the House to approve and adopt its report. I respectfully submit. I'm grateful.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairman. Honorable Dr. Sibewa, you may second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker,
Honorable, you have 10 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think I would even get to 10 minutes. Mr. Speaker, I second the motion, and in doing so, make some brief remarks. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of the levy and collection of same by the Ministry of Trade and Industries, I think the chairman has done a fantastic job. And as he indicated, no levy can be imposed by a ministry. Levies are imposed by Parliament. And so we have, for instance, the Special Imports Levy, the National Health Insurance Levy, the National Fiscal Stabilization Levy. Mr. Speaker, not even the President can impose a levy. Levies are imposed by Parliament. And the Minister, the Controller and Accountant General all alluded to this. Mr. Speaker, as a matter of fact, on page 102, when the mover of the motion, the Honorable Muntaka, was pushed to admit whether levies were collected, he ran away. He ran away from same. He said, Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I quote on page 101. It says, for the avoidance of doubt, what happened was a collection. I had collections in my motion. I would repeat that I have not said anywhere that the ministry has imposed levies. They do not have the power to do that. It is only Parliament that has the power to impose levies. End of quote. Mr. Speaker, so why were we recalled? The motion that was moved and for which the committee was composed said that the Honorable House investigates the levy. And when you appear before a fact-finding committee, lead evidence to prove that levies were imposed, you ran away. An honorable member of Parliament who has been here, I think, for his 4th term, recalls all of us here, and then you have the opportunity to prove whether a levy was imposed. He ran away from the imposition of levies. Mr. Speaker, again, on page 5 of the report, Mr. Speaker, again, with your permission, I quote, the Honorable Okujeto Ablakwa stated, and I quote, Mr. Speaker, I wish to submit that in our opinion, several sections of the Public Financial Management Act has been breached, as well as the Financial Administration Regulations and Article 284 of the Constitution of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, I have read the Public Financial Management Act 2016 cover to cover. And when they came to the committee, they couldn't point to any violation or breach of the PFM. As a matter of fact, this PFM was passed in 2016. To fortify the argument, they ran to regulations of the FAR, which was passed in 2004. Mr. Speaker, what necessitated the passage of the PFM in 2016 was that financial matters evolve. And so as we speak, the Financial Administration Regulation of 2004 was not relevant to now issues. So we passed the PFM. And now they went back to the FAR regulations of 2004 to fortify the argument. But Mr. Speaker, even there, they couldn't point to any violation of the Financial Administration Regulations. And if honorable members may note, the regulations that will accompany the PFM would come to Parliament very soon because the FAR regulations are outmoded. They are outmoded. And so we are in the process of passing, putting together regulations for the PFM that will be relevant to matters of modern day. Mr. Speaker, as to whether or not payments were made and received by MOTI and how the disbursements were made, I refer the House to section 1.4 of the MOU. You might not have copies, so I'll read. Mr. Speaker, I quote, that the Millennium Excellence Foundation will solicit all funds to host the GEBA Prize from inception to hosting of the event, and that all funds will be lodged in the Ministry of Trade and Industry account till after the event is completed. So there was a memorandum of understanding between the foundation and the ministry that all funds be lodged in the accounts of the ministry. Mr. Speaker, you cannot open accounts unless you have authorization from the Controller and Accountant General. So all accounts of the Ministry of Trade and Industry are open at the Bank of Ghana with authorization from the Controller and Accountant General. So if anybody argues that for the purposes of this event, a separate account be open, you would still have to go to the Controller and Accountant General. And so if there was an existing account duly authorized by the Controller and Accountant General, then there was no error in using that account to receive these funds, which were premised on the MOU duly signed between the ministry and the foundation. Mr. Speaker, in the PFM, again, in section 51 of the PFM, 51.1, it says, Mr. Speaker, if your permission, I quote again, a bank account shall not be opened for any covered entity without the written approval of the Controller and Accountant General. So there again, the PFM says that the ministry couldn't have opened an account without the authorization of the Controller and Accountant General. And then they also allege the usage of the GCR, the General Counterfoil Receipt, for collecting the monies. Mr. Speaker, if you go to page 111, honorable members of the reports, page 111, and Mr. Speaker, let me start from page 110. Here, Dr. Yini asks the Controller and Accountant General. That is true. So let's go back to the GCR. Under what circumstance can it be used to collect private monies? And the Controller, Mr. Fosun, retorts, private monies, it can never be used to collect private monies. Private monies for private accounts, but it can be used to collect monies that go into public accounts or public funds. So for any monies going into public funds, in this case, the accounts of the Ministry of Trade and Industry, you have to use the GCR. Once you collect monies, be they public or private, you have to use the GCR receipt. Mr. Speaker, if you go to the FAR regulations, outmoded as they are, even in Regulation 28.1, it says a collector who is satisfied that monies tendered are in order shall issue an original receipt to the payer and shall deal with the duplicate and triplicate copies as required by departmental accounting instructions. So the ministry couldn't have issued a receipt so procured for, say, Cantonment to receive these monies. The only receipts they could have used is the GCR. 2 says further that temporary receipts or receipts other than in the authorized form shall not be used for collection. So you couldn't have used any other receipt save the GCR. Furthermore, 28.3, Regulation 28.3 says a person who issues a temporary receipt or unauthorized form for collection is in breach of financial discipline as defined in Regulation 1. So, Minister and your ministry, you acted rightly by issuing a GCR for the collection of these monies. Mr. Speaker, in the MOU, and I refer to 1.1, section 1.1, it says that this is an initiative under the Ministry of Trade and Industry, a government partnership with the Millennium Excellence Foundation. So clearly, this was a public-private partnership. Mr. Speaker, as a matter of fact, in 1.62 of the MOU, it says the Ministry of Trade and Industry and the Foundation will agree on terms of remuneration, and that the MEF will retain 90%, and then the Ministry of Trade will retain 10% for subsequent hosting of the GEBA. So 90% was to go to the foundation, and 10% of the funds to go to the ministry. Mr. Speaker, in 1.9 of the MOU, it further fortifies this PPP arrangement by saying that MOTI and MEF agreed to a long-term collaborative and stroke ownership and management. However, the event will be hosted under the auspices of the Ministry of Trade and Industry. So clearly, this was a public-private initiative. So for anybody to suggest that these were private funds, the committee disagreed. Neither were they public funds nor private funds. Now, as far as I am concerned, there is no law on public-private partnership in Ghana. There is no law. Mr. Speaker, if you go to page 2 of the report, and there the Honorable Muntaka, in moving his motion here on the 5th of January, he said, if we look at the interpretation of public resources, it is beyond doubt that the monies that were collected by the ministry form a part of our public resources. Mr. Speaker, if you go to the PFM, in the interpretation section, public resources are defined to mean public revenue, including revenue acquired through donation, bequest, borrowing, movable and fixed assets, deposits, receivables, and rights. This is the definition of public resources in the Public Financial Management Act interpretation section. So when they appeared before the committee, and honorable members, I refer you to page 68 of the report. On page 68 of the report, sorry, honorable members, not page 68, but what, when the honorable Muntaka was asked,
Chairman, you conclude.
Yeah, which of the definitions, the items mentioned in the definitions would apply, he said, the honorable Muntaka retorted that what the ministry did was that they were, the funds in play here were receivables. Receivables refer to outstanding invoices a company has or money that company is owed. This couldn't have been receivables. Again, they said that, oh, it's IGF because this relates to activities of the ministry. Mr. Speaker, funds could not have arisen from the normal activities of the ministry because the foundation were supposed to solicit funds for the event. The Honorable Kujeto Ablaka went further by saying, oh, these were donations. Mr. Speaker, as established earlier, these funds couldn't have been public, neither could they have been private. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'll conclude here, but clearly, as the chairman indicated, the committee found no wrongdoing on the part of the ministry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable members. The motion has been duly moved and seconded for appropriate consideration of the House. Honorable Boabing Asamoah, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And in view of the business still before the House and the time spent so far, I direct that business is extended after this 2 p.m. accordingly. Honorable, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the motion on the floor. Mr. Speaker, the committee is very interested in the use of the mechanism for recall of Parliament. And the question is asked on page 137 of the report. in what circumstances ought the constitutional power of recall of Parliament be triggered? This question is of major public interest in view of significant public concern about convenience, cost, and the potential for abuse of the right of recall. Mr. Speaker, this is the industry the committee of this House, as you set up, put us to. An 8-inch thick volume of material. And such a matter of public interest, public investment, they refuse to sit down and debate it. This is an affront to the image of Parliament. And Parliament must take a very strong stand. Mr. Speaker, listen to Alhaji Muntaka when Speaker was gracious enough to set up this committee. Mr. Speaker, I'm quoting page 3 of the report. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, let me say, it is important that these matters are properly investigated. This should be done in the public view to create the necessary image. Once again, Parliament has the biggest opportunity to prove to the people of this country that as a House, we will do what is right to establish, if there is any doubt, how finances are used in this country. So, Speaker, on the contrary, they did not aid this House to establish that. They've rather desecrated the name of this House. Mr. Speaker, in setting up the committee, in spite of the technical deficiencies and incompetencies, had this to say, and that's on page 6 of the report. Since I do not want this to become a political football in the political arena, he says, she says, which we do not want in the development of democracy in our republic, I direct that we proceed further. Mr. Speaker proceeded further to magnanimously set up the special committee. And Mr. Speaker, everything they brought before the committee was speculative hearsay, thinner than tissue paper. Thinner than tissue paper. There was nothing of value to proceed on. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, they indulged in a cut and paste of allegations and accusations. They cut extortion, they paste it in the public space. They cut bribery, they paste it in the public space. Mr. Speaker, in the end, they cut levy and put it before this House. Cut and paste allegations, Mr. Speaker, all based on hearsay. They didn't produce one witness who said extortion had taken place affecting that person. They didn't produce a rule which determined that a levy had been imposed. Mr. Speaker, they could not produce one public official who had benefited from corruption or bribery. In all of it, their voice was that we haven't verified, it is for the committee to determine same. Mr. Speaker, the committee was of the view that this House ought not to have been recalled. It was a total abuse of the process of this House. It was a pointless adventure, Mr. Speaker, designed to privatize the recall power of this House in the interest of one group and one group only, a disgruntled minority in search of a non-existent scandal. Mr. Speaker, this enterprise began bad. The motion was flawed. It has ended badly. We hear there is something in the air. I don't want to dignify with a name, which appears to collate the conclusions of this House. And Mr. Speaker, I deign to quote a paragraph from that thing, that creature which is not known to this House. Page 13. Page 13. The convoluted logic of looking for a non-existent scandal. And I quote, that creature that is not known to this House. These assertions notwithstanding, an objective assessment of the evidence on record reveals that the Ministry of Trade and Industry played a key role in getting expatriate businesses to pay the sponsorship fees. Sponsorship fees. Now, sponsorship have become fees requested by its private sector partner, the foundation. Now, listen to this one. In other words, whilst there may not be a law imposing the amount to be paid, the element of compulsion may still be lurking in the background due to the preeminent role of the ministry in the entire scheme of things. The proof is lurking in the bush. I continue. It must be said that during the hearings of the committee, none of the expatriate business executives who attended upon the committee admitted to having been compelled to pay money. And the kicker of a conclusion, listen to this. But we don't think that any member of the committee expected a rational businessman or woman operating in Ghana to make an admission that they had been forced to pay money towards an event openly supported by government. This is the mishmash of misanalysis parading the internet as a creature this House does not know. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, Parliament must take a stand. Not ever again ought any member be able to convene the full weight of Parliament on ill-fated political agendas solely and merely on the right to invoke Article 1123 as a constitutional right. This attempt has failed. This attempt has failed. And Mr. Speaker, this House will be advised. This House will be thoroughly advised by Mr. Speaker's admonition in setting up the committee on page, Mr. Speaker, I'll be there soon. On page, Mr. Speaker, let me go to the report. Fire. It's set out in the report, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on page 38, set out, Mr. Speaker. Good. The points. Mr. Speaker, I want to use the handset so that, I found it, Mr. Speaker. Now, this is Mr. Speaker of the Hansard of 5th January. Honorable Member, the rights provided for under Article 1123 of the Constitution should necessarily be used with considerable circumspection, considering all the implications of the matter. Although they do not refer to this particular case per se, these are principles we should establish for posterity and for our guidance. And we've quoted those principles in extenso. 1, when did the matter under consideration arise? This matter was in the public domain whilst this House was sitting. The proponent of the motion, Alhaji Muntaka, spoke to it in this House. He was on radio severally, threatening to do all manner of things, and yet he chose to recall this House. 2, can it be perceived in terms of what lawyers normally describe as novus actus interveniens, that is a new matter intervening, is what has arisen something new? In other words, when we go on holidays, the question must be asked whether it is something that with all reasonable foresight could not have been pursued, for which matter we must come back necessarily. We must be careful when a matter is such that it is within our ordinary premise. We go on vacation and then say that we want to come back at whatever expense and inconvenience. This is Speaker speaking. 3rd point, could the matter have been raised during the regular sitting session with prudent vigilance? 4th point, it's 5 points in total.
Has the matter been raised in any form whatsoever during the session? If not, why raise it in the moment Parliament goes on recess? And this is what the Speaker had to say to conclude. Honorable members, I have studied the Constitution very carefully, and I'm convinced that the recall provided for in Article 1123 is mandatory. Once the requisite number of members of Parliament have signed the petition as appropriately provided by law, I do not see any discretion therein, and I don't intend to invoke any. Nevertheless, once Parliament is recalled, Mr. Speaker may have the discretion regarding what business takes place. For that matter, anything that offends the issues raised above, that is the pointers, would be grounds for open and closed policy. We would recall and then send away. This is Mr. Speaker's words. In consequence, our recommendation, Mr. Speaker, our recommendation on page 144 of the report is that we realize the recall is in 2 steps. The Constitution provides for summoning the House under 1123. However, 38(1) gives Mr. Speaker, the summons must be within 7 days. Receipt by the Speaker, within 7 days he must summon the House. And then, when Mr. Speaker summons the House, 38(1) of the standing orders say he has 7 days within which to sit the House for the matter to be heard. So all in all, given how fast Mr. Speaker wants to move, one has 7 days and a consequent 7 days to look at the matter. We believe that when the summons arrive and we are called or recalled, because Mr. Speaker is mandatory, once we get into the House, Mr. Speaker can use his authority under the 38(1) of our standing orders to peremptorily dismiss whatever matter there is if it doesn't stand up to the rules, if it is not about urgent, serious government business. On that note, Mr. Speaker, I want to be grateful for the opportunity given me to serve on the committee, and I want this House to support and vote for the adoption of the report of the committee. I'm most grateful, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. The Honourable Minister for Trade and Industry, Honourable Alan Cherematin, may make some comments, and then we all know that under the Constitution, ministers have the right to be present, to contribute where necessary. This is an appropriate occasion for us to hear from the Honourable Minister for a couple of minutes, and then the majority that will wind up. Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I rise first to express the sincere appreciation of the Ministry of Trade and Industry for the very comprehensive and excellent work done by the special committee appointed under your authority, and for exposing the truth in respect of the matter under reference today. But, Mr. Speaker, I cannot resist the temptation, having been given this platform, of making a few comments about 4 of the key individuals who have been associated with this drama. And I start with Honorable Muntaka. It is a matter of record that this august House was summoned on the motion tabled by Honorable Muntaka, not in response to a state of emergency, but to investigate an allegation of the imposition of a levy. Mr. Speaker, the report of the special committee has made it clear that the committee could not substantiate the allegation of levy. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, it may be possible that the associated costs for recalling this house may be a case of causing financial loss. And this must be investigated. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, it is also on record that during the evidence adduced by Honorable Montaka, he submitted evidence of a document that has been proved now to be fraudulent because an invitation letter that was supposed to have been authored by the Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry now had photocopied on the back of that document a sponsorship package. And it is on record that the beneficiaries or the recipients of this document have given evidence on oath that they received the sponsorship package separately from the letter of invitation. If an honorable member submits a document which has now been proven established to be fraudulent, and this was submitted on oath before a special committee of this August House, Mr. Speaker, it may be the case that this must be properly interrogated. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Ayene made several efforts to advance legal arguments during the course of interrogation, which were never substantiated either by evidence or by substantive law. And subsequently, we have seen that these same legal arguments have found their way in a minority report, which this August House is not even considering. Honorable Okujeto Ablakwa, in performing his new role as the rising star of the minority, also went to town and in a spectacular display of indiscretion suggested that the image of our dear country had sunk so low as a result of this matter. Are we now to believe that the judgment of Honorable Okujeto is now the litmus test for judging the image of our country?
1 million jobs.
He went further to make specific allegations of extortion, which he was neither able to prove nor sustain during interrogation, and as has been evidenced by the report of the committee. Honorable Abeji also did make significant efforts to establish that funds that to all intents and purposes were considered as private funds, to establish that these were public funds. Again, the record is clear. Mr. Speaker, I can only say in conclusion that the principle of the separation of powers, which has made it possible for this August House to interrogate the action of an agent of the executive, that same principle also imposes a responsibility on agents of other organs of the state to exercise discretion in authorizing statements around in the media. And so I end, Right Honorable Speaker, in posing a question to this Honorable House. How are the citizens of our country protected by this honorable House from the acts and omissions of members, honorable members of this House? Submitted.
Honorable Majority Leader.
Speaker.
You have 20 minutes. You have 20 minutes to
Thank you very much
conclude.
for the opportunity to comment on the report submitted by the Special Committee to investigate the levy and collection of sums of money by the Ministry of Trade and Industry from expatriate businesses and related matters during the recently held Ghana Expatriate Business Awards in Accra. Mr. Speaker, on the 27th of December 2017, a section of the minority purported to have submitted a request to you, Mr. Speaker, to summon Parliament to consider their motion. Mr. Speaker, it is important to observe that the 27th of December was the first working day after Parliament adjourned Senate Day to close the third meeting of the first session of the 7th Parliament. Before submitting their request to the Speaker, a number of the minority members, including in particular the Chief Whip, had made submissions on the floor during the debate on the motion for the approval of the estimates of the Ministry of Trade and Industry. To the extent that these issues raised by colleagues were mere hearsays and not predicated on any evidence, it was deemed unmeritorious of any significant response. The Speaker, it is also instructive to note that before the House proceeded on adjournment, some minority members had, as has become very typical, hopped from one radio station to the other, making wild claims of impropriety on the part of the President and the Minister for Trade and Industry. Specifically, they had alleged that both the President and the Minister of Trade had involved themselves in corruption, bribery, and extortion. The Speaker, theirs was a very spirited attempt to tag both the President and the Minister as corrupt. The contrived attempt proved fruitless, as the tag simply would not wash. Mr. Speaker, the preamble of the 1992 Constitution imposes a huge burden on the people of Ghana. In the referendum that approved the Constitution, we agreed to establish, and I quote from the preamble of the Constitution, a framework of government which shall secure for ourselves and posterity the blessings of liberty, equality, opportunity, and prosperity. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, we solemnly declared and affirmed our commitment to freedom, justice, probity, and accountability. Mr. Speaker, I emphasize probity and accountability. Parliament is the people's representatives, and as Parliament is the arm, and Parliament is the arm of government with the prime responsibility to ensure probity and accountability within our governance architecture. Parliament has a duty to oversee the executive. So ordinarily, Mr. Speaker, if a motion relates to financial malfeasance, as the allegation was, if it relates to bribery, corruption, or extortion on the part of the executive, Parliament must rise in unison with one accord to support that call. Except, Mr. Speaker, that in this very motion, as I noted earlier on, it was a complete abuse of the process in Parliament. Mr. Speaker, the principle underpinning Article 112(3) and Order 38 is that the summoning or recall of Parliament must be triggered by peculiar circumstances. Mr. Speaker, it is not for nothing that the side notes in our standing orders, Order 38, provides meeting by special request. The request must be special in response to special circumstances. Mr. Speaker, which then would mean that a matter of urgent public importance suddenly arises during the period of adjournment. In Order 66.1, Mr. Speaker, the Speaker is made the sole judge of the admissibility of a question. In Order 79.4, the Speaker is conferred with authority to receive and direct the shape every motion should assume, and indeed its admissibility. Order 72 vests the Speaker the authority to grant leave to any member who may want to make a statement in Parliament. If a Speaker elects, in the exercise of his discretionary power, in respect of the admissibility of a question, motion, or statement, if he elects not to be fair and candid, in other words, if the Speaker elects to be arbitrary, capricious, or biased, either by resentment, prejudice, or personal dislike, or as provided for under Article 296 of the Constitution, then a member could invoke Article 112(3) of the Constitution. The Speaker, a member then could force the hand of a Speaker who decides not to provide space for any person or indeed any group, including the minority, to force the hand of the Speaker to summon Parliament to respond to such matters. Mr. Speaker, the case, if a case is an appropriate description of what matter is before us today, was filed with the Speaker on the 27th of December, the first working day after Parliament adjourned on the 22nd December. The questions to be asked and answered are these. Had any matter of urgent public importance suddenly arisen during the weekend and the Christmas holidays, spanning 23rd to 26th of December? Mr. Speaker, none whatsoever had arisen. During the period when Parliament was in session before adjournment on the 22nd, had any question, motion, or statement been submitted to the Speaker, which the Speaker had, for whatever reason, refused to admit? None whatsoever. No question, no motion, no statement had been filed by any member of this House in respect of the matter before us. It is for this reason, Mr. Speaker, why some of us stated categorically that the request by a section of the minority to recall Parliament represents a monumental abuse of the processes of Parliament. Honourable members will recall that on the 22nd of December, when Parliament was about adjourning, the Speaker, as leader of government business and indeed as leader of the House, intimated that the House was going to resume on the 23rd of January. The Speaker, when this motion was submitted on the 27th of December, what it meant was that, as per Order 38, and indeed Article 1123, you had 14 days within which to summon Parliament. The Speaker, if we took away the holidays and the weekends, you had up to the 17th of January to recall Parliament. And given the fact that Parliament was going to be recalled on the 23rd of January, what it meant was that Parliament was going to be summoned exactly 2 days, 2 sitting days before the recall of Parliament. What indeed was the sense in this enterprise? The Speaker, it is one of the reasons why we said that this indeed was an abuse of the processes of this House. There was no compelling reason that justified such a recall. Mr. Speaker, on the motion itself, it was Honourable Muntaka, as we submitted the other time, who submitted the application, a request to the Speaker to summon Parliament. The Honourable Muntaka, the MP for Asanwasi, claimed to be acting on behalf of a section of minority members who had appended their signatures on a number of sheets. And he began by saying, Mr. Speaker, in that memo, that we the undersigned members, it came to the fore that he was not part of the persons who had appended their signatures. So he was not part of those people who had undersigned. That being the case, and given the fact that none of those people who had undersigned had also joined ranks in appending their signature to the memorandum, the Speaker, what it meant was that technically, no application for a recall for summoning of Parliament had come to you because Muntaka was not part of those people who had appended their signatures. The Speaker, it is one of the reasons why we said that the motion itself was technically bankrupt and incompetent, and that should not have even caused Parliament to be recalled. But Mr. Speaker, you are a reverend minister. And you demonstrated magnanimity and summoned Parliament, even though nothing indicated that those people who had appended their signatures were calling for a recall of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, that document in itself was a dubious document. The correct adjective has been supplied by the Honorable Obiamwa. It was a very dubious and shadowy and shady document. Mr. Speaker, as I've said earlier, before summoning Parliament, the airwaves have been inundated with allegations of bribery, corruption, extortion by some members of the minority group. They had insisted that the Minister of Trade and Industry, the Honorable Alan Kojo-Cheruiyot, had violated the laws and regulations of the Republic. They had alleged that the President himself was involved. Against the backdrop of personal attacks and vilifications, the so-called motion that was submitted by the Honorable Muntaka, the Speaker, supposedly on behalf of the minority, made no mention of bribery. It made no mention of corruption. It made no mention of extortion. Mr. Speaker, at the committee, and we have been told by the chairman that when pushed, the Honorable Muntaka said, even the terminology levy that he had used, they sprinted away from that and said that the ministry had not imposed any levy. So what was the place of the term in his motion? Mr. Speaker, they clearly sought to pollute the environment. Now, this flip-flopping, this changing of character and form, like the sand dunes of the Sahara Desert, the inconsistency tells a lot about the nature and character of the sponsors of this motion. Mr. Speaker, does it represent sincerity and honesty that a person who does not stick to principled positions? Mr. Speaker, on the 5th of January, when Parliament came to be summoned, I stated that if the executive or any member thereof misconducted himself or herself, Parliament should be called upon to investigate. And Parliament is called upon to investigate, I will be the first to support such a motion. Except, as I noted then, as I do now, that the motion that is submitted was very incompetent, and the account of the issues, on account of the issues that the Speaker have raised. The Speaker, you sustained the observation and the statement that I made on that day, and that the motion was and still is incompetent. However, Mr. Speaker, again, in your usual magnanimous self, you requested the minority chief whip and his associates to do what is right and resubmit the motion, and accordingly suspend the sitting for 30 minutes. The House did not resume until after 2 hours. Mr. Speaker, when the House resumed, after the 2 hour suspension, it was realized that the minority group had not done anything to amend the original motion, which you, the Speaker, had called upon them to recline and correct. The Speaker, not only that within the over 2 hours of suspension period, the minority did not find it appropriate, they didn't find it courteous, they did not find it respectful to even come and discuss this matter with your good self. Mr. Speaker, it was as if they were baiting you to throw away their so-called motion in order for them to continue their propaganda outside the chamber block. Against the backdrop of such wanton display of disrespect and arrogance, the Right Honourable Speaker did not throw out the so-called motion, but went ahead and referred same to the special committee to deal with the matter and report back to the House on the 24th of January. The Speaker, I thought the Right Honourable Speaker was overbending the rules of this House to accommodate the section of the minority who had allegedly appended their signatures for the summoning of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, the matter went before the committee, and the people of this country observed the conduct of business by the committee on our television screens. Discerning minds were able to sift wheat from chaff. And we expect the committee to assist this House, indeed, to sift wheat from chaff. And, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad that the committee has done just that. The report of the committee epitomizes diligence, dexterity, and scrupulousness. Mr. Speaker, I commend the committee for their display of eagle idleness and applying the finest comb to unearth truth as opposed to sheer propaganda. Mr. Speaker, appearing before the committee, the mover of the motion, the honourable member who seconded the motion when required to adduce evidence to substantiate their claim that the Minister of Trade had, one, imposed a levy, and two, that the Minister of Trade and Industry had collected various sums of money as a result of the money, as I said, shied away. Mr. Speaker, now, the member, when he was called upon to adduce evidence, would not. Rather, he charged the committee to produce evidence to substantiate his allegation. Mr. Speaker, that is found on page 2, paragraph 3. And with respect, Mr. Speaker, I may want to quote. Mr. Speaker, he said, the Honourable Muntaka said, the Honourable Muntaka opined that the allegation that he was making raised serious ethical issues if they were established and proven. Established by who? Established by the committee. He was not in a position to establish, by producing evidence, the veracity of his own allegation. He charges the committee to make that establishment for him and prove that he is right. Why on earth do you say this? Because he's a very honorable man. And a very honorable man indeed. Mr. Speaker, it is axiomatic in the arena of legalities that he who alleges must show proof. In other words, the burden of proof on the person making the allegation is by the evidence that he would adduce, indicate the veracity of his allegation. Here we have somebody who is now charging Parliament that I have made an allegation. Parliament should inquire into that allegation. The Speaker, going forward, I believe this Parliament must make a determination. Parliament cannot be allowed to go on any wild goose chase at the whims and caprices of any individual who will not be in a position to make any substantiation of an allegation that he makes. Only last week, Mr. Speaker, this House was being urged to establish another committee to go into recruitment done by the Marshal, because by the thinking, by the imagination of somebody in this House, the Marshal had recruited from so-called invisible forces. And so this House must set up a committee going on another frolic, another useless expedition. Mr. Speaker, that is why I'm saying that this House must establish parameters. If anybody makes any allegation, the onus should fall on that person to produce evidence. If evidence is produced, then this House could then be led to establish a committee. Or maybe a matter could be referred to the relevant committee. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, this House will be reduced to a chamber of concert party. Mr. Speaker, we must be careful in order to protect the integrity of this House. Mr. Speaker, the prime mover of the motion, which sent this House on a wild goose chase, premiered his argument on a supposed document, which, according to him, had come from the Ministry of Trade and Industry.
Honorable Leader, you conclude.
Mr. Speaker, I will do so presently. Mr. Speaker, so he says to us that the monies had to be paid. That was a premise of his own allegation, that the monies had to be paid. Mr. Speaker, I refer us to page 2, paragraph 2 of the committee's report. Mr. Speaker, in moving the motion, the Honorable Muntaka alleged that people had to pay money to sit close to the President and express worry over same. He also stated that he had a document which stated that the monies had, and I'm quoting, the monies had to be paid. The monies had to be paid. Mr. Speaker, that is the allegation the Honorable Muntaka makes. And when he's called upon to substantiate, he cannot. He says it is a committee, the burden is on the committee to establish that the monies had to be paid. Mr. Speaker, we are told that various legislations and acts have been violated by both the President and the Minister for Trade and Industry. When the Honorable Okujeto was pushed to prove any such, he could not, as the member, the chairman of the Finance Committee has indicated, he could not cite one provision in the Public Financial Management Act or even in the regulations that he quoted. Not one. Should Parliament allow such exercises to go on? Mr. Speaker, this country is most grateful to the committee for such a diligent work. But, Mr. Speaker, it is important, given what the minority leader said, to relate to the conduct of our two colleagues. The Honorable Aveji had applied to you that he wanted to attend an international conference. The Speaker, you granted him leave to do. That is, if he so preferred. So he abandoned the committee work and went out. Of course, at the time he left, the committee had about finished with their business. They were about considering the evidence before them. And, Mr. Speaker, it's instructive to learn from the committee that the first 99 pages of the report they had agreed on. They had agreed on. And line by line, sentence by sentence. It is instructive, again, to hear that when the chairman then invited them, the committee members, to a meeting to discuss what should constitute the report. At the time, the Honorable Aveji had traveled out. But the Honorable Dr. Ayini, who was often very late to the committee meetings, Mr. Speaker, he, after asking for the draft report, then disappeared, and for 2 days went into a self-imposed solitary confinement. Mr. Speaker, to do whatever. When his colleagues called on him, telephone calls, he would not respond. And can you imagine that a person who has to appear and participate in the proceedings of the committee at 3 o'clock, then he will not respond at 5 o'clock to telephone calls? Then he said he'll be there at 7 o'clock. They did his bidding. 7 o'clock, he shut his phones. Up to 12 midnight. Up to 12 midnight. And then he decides to call the chairman that his system has crashed. His laptop has crashed. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? And even telephone calls. He said he has run out of power. And there was light off in his residence.
We paid this for
Mr. Speaker, cock and bull stories. Cock and bull stories. And that is a former Deputy Attorney General of this Republic. Mr. Speaker, that certainly is textbook dishonesty. It's textbook dishonesty. We cannot encourage that. We cannot encourage that. And then he goes and copies verbatim from what discussion had gone on, the draft report that they had. From page 1 to 99, which they had agreed on. And then went and rearranged the pages and pretends that he has written his own report. Mr. Speaker, this House, as I said, cannot be held ransom by one person. And the difficulty is that when he appeared before his own leaders, he went and told palpable untruth to the minority leader. He had not submitted to the committee, and yet he was charging the other committee members that they were untruthful. When he was looking for them, he was not finding them. Can anybody believe that? When he knew that they had reclined to a hotel room to do this, he was not at the hotel, the three of them were there, they were searching for him, he was not availing himself, and yet he goes to his minority leader and tells him. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, it is good to learn that the committee, after the hearings and the analysis and evaluation of the evidence adduced before it, has come to a conclusion that there is no merit in the allegations leveled against the Ministry of Trade and Industry, indeed the Minister responsible for Trade and Industry, and the President, as contained in the motion which culminated in the setting up of the special committee. Mr. Speaker, I associate myself with the observations and conclusions of the committee, and I urge all of us to adopt and approve of the report of the special committee. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for a limited space. I thank you very much.
At the end of the debate, honorable members, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. As the conclusions, there is no merit whatsoever in the allegations made against the Honorable Minister, the Ministry, or any other person or body in any manner whatsoever. Particularly, there has been no levy, no extortion of any kind or measure. No financial regulation nor laid down procedure was broken. No irregularity whatsoever took place. The controller's evidence is helpful and was most indicative of arriving at a conclusion that no irregularity in our financial laws and processes were breached. Mr. Beho and all other independent witnesses must be congratulated for helping us to get to the bottom of this matter. Honorable members, the inquisitorial powers of Parliament are very, very important, but they should not be frivolously applied. A complaint must have serious substance to trigger the powers of this House of the representatives of the good people of Ghana. Fishing interrogatories, as they are called in law, fishing interrogatories, are frowned upon by courts of competent jurisdiction throughout the world. An allegation must not simply be thrown into the air and then you ask Parliament, go investigate. They must be substantial and not an abuse of due process. Honorable members, this is a very serious matter in view of all that took place. I direct that all documents tendered and the committee be referred to the Privileges Committee for full investigation, as well as any other matter that will arise worthy of investigation in the view of the committee should be duly investigated and appropriate action taken against whoever, whether member of the House or otherwise, was involved in that which Parliament considers to be dealt with. Honorable members, it was useful for us to be patient, and this is the way to build a democracy. If anyone's name has been abused unduly, if anybody's reputation has been tampered with in any manner, he or she must take consolation in the ultimate truth. This is part of the process of public service. The overarching issue throughout this matter was the truth. The truth is fully out and finally. We thank the committee members and all well-meaning citizens who cooperated in the process. And we thank God. This is how our republic can continue to grow. Honorable members, I thank you. Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, if we can deal with 5 now. Items listed under 5.
Item listed 5.
5, yes.
Presentation of papers. The Honorable First Deputy Speaker will take the chair. Presentation of papers.
Annual reports of the National Labour Commission for the period 1st January to 31st December 2016.
First Deputy will continue.
Honourable members.
In this House on the 22nd of December, 2017. Mr. Speaker, on that day, the Assembly press was inundated by a number of issues. And so, on that very day, which was the 22nd, which was the day Parliament adjourned, the regulations couldn't be printed. It couldn't be gazetted. It couldn't be gazetted. Now, that being the case, it is deemed appropriate to withdraw it and then have it relayed. The Speaker, in much the same way, for the National Identity Register Regulation 2018, which was laid on the 5th of January, Mr. Speaker, that was done on the 27th of January, the Saturday on which the Speaker was coronated as the acting president. The Speaker, it was a Saturday, and as the Constitution provides, when the regulation is laid in Parliament, it must be published in the Gazette on that same day when it is laid in Parliament. Because it was a Saturday, they couldn't again gazette that instrument. Mr. Speaker, even though we had assurances to the country that we were going to gazette it, unfortunately, it turned out not to be the case. So we are going to withdraw these two regulations, that is the Legal Professional and Post-Call Law Course Regulations 2017 and the National Identity Register Amendment Regulations 2018. I so apply for withdrawal of these two documents.
Shall we take them one after the other, leader? So first, let's say that item B, you withdraw and lay a new one, then we come to C. So please, leave is granted to withdraw item number, the Legal Professions Amendment Post-Call Law Course Regulations, earlier late.
Speaker, so withdrawn, and I do lay it now.
Legal Professional and Post-Call Law Course Regulations 2017.
Honourable members, the paper has been duly laid and it is referred to the Subsidiary Legislation Committee for consideration and report. Honourable, item number 5C.
Speaker, I assume that you granted the leave to withdraw.
National Identity Register Amendment Regulations 2018.
Honourable members, the regulations are duly laid and it's referred to the Committee on Subsidiary Legislation for consideration and report. Yes, Honourable Member for New Jabing South.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I want your guidance on this one. The 5B, the Legal Professional and Post-Call Law Course Regulations. It said 2017. At this time of laying, I would have thought it would be 2018.
Very well. Thank you for the prompting the House. The regulation should read Legal Professions, Professional and Post-Call Law Course Regulations 2018. Honourable members, item number 5D by the Chairman of the Finance Committee. 5D, Roman number I.
Report of the Finance Committee on the request for waiver of import duties, import VAT, import NHIL, ECOWAS levy, EDAIF, special imports levy, and other approved imposts, including inspection fees, as assessed amounting to the Ghana cedi equivalent of 2,287,000 95 euros on project equipment and materials for the implementation of the project agreement between the Ministry of Health and BAMED in respect of the design, construction, equipment and furnishing of 5 polytechnics in the Greater Accra Region Phase 4 to be located in Adentang, Ashiaman, Botiano, Odumang and Sege.
Honourable members, the report is duly laid and is for distribution to members. Item number 5D, Roman numeral 2.
Report of the Finance Committee on the agreement between the government of the Republic of Ghana and the government of the United States of America regarding mutual assistance between the customs administrations.
The report of the Finance Committee is duly laid and it is for distribution to members. Item number 7. Oh, that has been taken, sorry. Item number 8, motion. Honourable Majority Leader, the chairman of the committee is not here. How do you do?
Mr. Speaker, I would plead that for motions listed as items number 8 and 9, we stand them down until tomorrow.
Very well. Items number 8 and 9 are duly deferred. At this juncture, Honourable Majority Leader, can I bring the proceedings to a close unless there is any other matter?
Speaker, there is no other matter of significant importance, so you may adjourn.
Honourable members, the House is accordingly adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, the 7th of February, 2018 at 10 o'clock in the forenoon.